Man United hired Ollie, right? And Ollie did really, really well. They were going to get Pochettino, and Ollie did really well. And on the swell of the fans and their love for Ollie, they hired him. Is there a danger? Potentially, is there a danger that the same thing happens? Let's say Frank gets to the Champions League final.
That's exactly
miraculous. Chelsea rocket up the table. He wins 8 out of 9 games or whatever. And it's like, we're going to bring you back, Frank. We're going to do it. We're going to do it.
I don't think anybody could argue with us if we said that there was no plan. If that was to happen, that would be...
Because this, to me, like, obviously, Dan, I know you love Frank Lampard. Obviously, he's been there at Chelsea before. It didn't work out. He's been to Everton, since been sacked from there as well. But this Lampard move, to me, is to get the fans back on side. Absolutely right. So, what if he does well?
Yeah, I mean, it would be the most Chelsea thing ever for him to win the Champions League. We all demand he stays, and then he gets sacked in October or November. You know, I could see that happening because, you know, it happened with Di Matteo, and it would be... But then, I mean, you flip it on its head and say, mate, you win the Champions League, then you probably should leave because it's not going to get any better than that at that point. But I think, it's a combination of... You know, Bruno didn't want to take the role. It felt quite awkward, and he quite clearly wasn't open to doing that. And you have someone like Frank who is, you know, has the humility and the care for the club to go, I'm not going to get this role probably unless I do win the Champions League. So I'm going to take it. And it does get the fans back on side. Like, there is just a kind of a reality that supporters being happy and being emotionally connected to their clubs is quite important. It's something that social media tries to tell you isn't important. But as I was just referring to with Graham Potter, the moon inside Stamford Bridge is going to be completely different. And I think to people outside of Chelsea, symbolically, this means a lot to a lot of us, including myself, because Frank, as a player and also as a coach, didn't really get a proper farewell over time because he left at the end of that 13-14 season. You know, we didn't really know whether he was going to stay or not. And then he went to Man City, and then he got sacked during the lockdown period, when fans weren't allowed in the stadium. That Nottingham Forest game at the end of this season is going to be a packed house purely because the high 99% chances that that's going to be a farewell to Frank Lampard. I understand from an outside perspective that doesn't mean a lot, but to Chelsea fans it does mean a lot.
You know, we're kind of going down the route here that this is an appointment that appeases the fans. What is the overall opinion like? Because I've seen on social media, and I know that's never a good place to gauge the general feeling or the feeling of the loyal fans in a lot of instances. But is everybody happy with Frank Lampard, or is there a bit of pushback as well? Are there people of a Chelsea persuasion going, hold on a minute, what are we doing here?
No, I think unanimously it's positive. It is. There's kind of no doubt about that. Of course, you have what I refer to as consumers online who, you know, I think that they're you know, or people who like to try and get to rile a reaction, but I think most supporters understand that it's a nice thing to have for at least 10 games or so. And then I think a lot of people want to see a permanent coach come in. You know, my love for Frank Lampard is obviously there, but I'd be concerned if he was considered a serious option for the long term. I'm just being, you know, blunt there. And I think as I say, it buys them time to have what should be a really thorough process, with now having no sporting directors in there because for me, I think the key point for me about this process of bringing someone in, it's not about finding a messiah figure as the next head coach. It's not about finding the guy. The problem Chelsea have probably run into, and they probably took the wrong lesson from Brighton, in truth, is that they need someone to come in, save the club, basically revamp the whole club from the dugout. When actually what you need is you need to clarify what is the vision above the head coach. What are we looking for from a head coach? So then what you have is someone who ticks a lot of boxes, whether that is a brand of football, working with, say, young players that they've invested in. And then what you have a situation where in 2 to 3 years, if that head coach, say as Nagelsmann, moves on or it goes wrong, you aren't then suddenly left with a chaotic situation with a squad that's muddled because you've invested everything into one guy. I think a lot of modern clubs now work for that. Look at the transition from Brighton, from Potter to De Zerbi. That is the sign of a club that has a clear plan behind the scenes and a structure that is able to withstand a change in head coach. at Chelsea, it's been too much about the guy in the dugout. We're whether it's Potter, whether it's Tuchel, whether it's Conte, we're bending to this guy's will no matter what. So you buy a load of specialist players for that specific guy, and then in 2 to 3 years' time, probably less regarding Chelsea's history of head coaches, you then have to completely spend another 200 to 300 million. That's not a Todd Bowley problem, by the way. That is something that you can link back to like the last decade. So for me, I think it's about trying to find someone who, as I say, ticks those boxes. It's those names, Enrique, Nagelsmann, Pochettino, which is a little bit more consistent. And in fact, I think they are going to look for someone who has big club experience, someone who, the problem with Graham Potter, the accusation that we've always made, and I think it's a fair one, is that you're taking someone from one level of expectation to another and not kind of dealing in that big club kind of environment. So, and as well, the reality is maybe they've already had talks with Enrique and Nagelsmann and maybe Pochettino, and maybe all three of them have turned around and gone, I don't really want to take over now. And maybe they've looked at the situation and gone, well, either we can jump at someone else who maybe isn't the fit for us right now and we could make a mistake, or we've got Frank Lampard who is willing to do a caretaker job. He does have head coach and coaching experience. For 10 games, it will get the fans back on side and it will give us the time to look at those candidates who we want for the summer and make an informed decision. Fair enough. With now footballing people behind the scenes that they didn't have a year ago, because they didn't have Vival, they didn't have Stewart, they didn't have Erwin Stanley, that they do now. I consistently say that with ownership, it is judging them in more than 1 year. I'm not going to sit. I agree with that. I'd be nonsensical 100%. To try and sit here and tell you, it's all going swimmingly, and they've all got. There are moments where I sit there and go, yeah, it does look chaotic, because that's what it is. However, I think that if I'm just judging it in the circumstances I have in front of me right now, I think that waiting and kind of, if they really are going to be serious about taking their time over who should come in next, because they have to get it right, I think that makes a lot of sense rather than jumping 2 foot in for someone who maybe isn't the perfect fit.
Two questions for you then. First one is, who does the Daniel Childs computer say that Chelsea should appoint?
There's been comments saying, get a new computer.
Yeah, Windows XP is finished. So you're in charge. Who is the candidate that stands out to you at this moment in time?
Maurizio Pochettino.
Okay. And
that'd be divisive.
Yeah, that probably would be divisive.
But I think it's in the current situation, everything. I agree with Daniel. That is a solid choice.
Yeah, I think so as well.
The other question. Sorry.
No. The other question is, why do you think, and this is not aimed at you, but this is like a general question that I think non-Chelsea fans probably want to hear the answer to. Why is it that Chelsea fans come across as so, and again, not aimed at you, but so defensive of Todd Bowley? Why is it that, other clubs' fans, when their owners are doing something that they don't agree with or they think isn't right and isn't working, they're quite vocal about it?
I don't know if that's fair, Harry. I think every club has.
I think every club has
social media base.
Agreed, but I think I've found, and I guess we can say that we found doing this show, that the default position of a lot of Chelsea fans has been, let me defend Todd Bowley. Actually, this isn't as bad as you guys are saying.
I think it's quite simplistic. Let Daniel give the real answer. I'll just give a very simplistic, off-the-cuff answer. It's because he's bought them loads of players. And that's what it is these days. Buy new presents, new shiny toys. Oh, brilliant, fantastic. But there has to be a plan behind it, and there has to be a strategy behind it. That's just my theory.
I think it's difficult to answer in terms of like YouTube comments all the time, because we are talking about...
It's not just YouTube, it's just in my DMs.
Well, yeah, it's like, but this is the thing, like social media.
Yeah, social media, yeah. I get that.
And it's difficult to distinguish at times when social media is very noisy between certain these Chelsea fans... And I don't want to kind of rubbish people who don't live in the UK and say they're not real support. That's not the point I'm trying to make. But it's like, at times with the obsession over transfers, you do have people who become very tribal about that. And, to them, it is kind of like following a Disney Plus or Netflix show. There isn't kind of that deep emotional connection. And there is a sense of tribalism on social media that... And I also think from a Chelsea point of view, just my analysis is that I think there is a perception of Chelsea in media from supporters looking that there are times when there isn't a lot of Chelsea representation, and it does feel like Chelsea are kind of at times there's a lot of mud that gets thrown at Chelsea. So I think there's that defence mechanism of fans that goes into, well, we're going to back Chelsea, we're going to back our club. So it's tough for me to say why, if you were to give me, examples of, well, why is that Chelsea fan saying that? Why is that Chelsea fan saying that? I think some people, like myself, I get frustrated sometimes when, and this is just generally about football media and football conversations, is when I see opinions that I don't think are based on facts. Like, you can criticize something, but it's when I'm hearing like American stereotypes about Todd Bowley that I kind of zone out, because I'm like, well, we're not having a I'm not accusing you of doing that. When I've heard prominent YouTubers say Todd Bowley is sat there with a cowboy hat on and he's eating pizza, like that's not serious analysis.